Now, for the first time since 2006, we can introduce you to Canada's Deputy Prime Minister. She's also juggling the tricky intergovernmental affairs portfolio to keep the peace with provinces. Chrystia Freeland joins me in the studio. Congratulations, I think.
Yes, well, thank you, Don.
I do want to ask you, I mean, you had a chance to get away from Donald Trump and just deal with some cranky premiers, but now you're taking on the Trump White House still on trade issues over our free trade and provinces like Doug Ford and Scott Moe and Jason Kenney, and you're chairing a major cabinet committee. Are you not taking on too much?
I like working hard.
Your kid's going to ask for ID when you walk in the door.
I did warn my kids they might not be seeing me that often, and they said that's okay. They've been seeing me a lot during the election campaign.
They're bored of you already.
Yeah, they're happy to get me out of the house. They're tired of my cooking.
Okay, but no, it's a lot. Yeah, can you really solve the puzzle that's Alberta? You went to school there and university there. You know what it's like. Can you solve that puzzle? Deal with U.S. issues which are flaring up and, sort of stick handle through as Deputy Prime Minister?
Well, just to get facts straight, I was born and raised in Alberta, but I didn't go to university there.
Okay.
It's a big job the Prime Minister has asked me to do. Mm-hmm. I think he has asked all of his ministers to do big jobs. And frankly, I think this is a moment in the life of our country when we have some big challenges we have to meet. And it is a privilege to put my shoulder to the wheel and do what I can to help. I do think that actually continuing to oversee the Canada-U.S. relationship and serving as Intergovernmental Affairs Minister are really complementary tasks, because I think that what we really learned during the NAFTA negotiations about the Canada-U.S. relationship is we handle it best when we work as a team.
Right.
And one of the things that I want to sort of bring to the federal-provincial relationships is a reminder to us all that the reason the NAFTA negotiations were successful is we listened to each other very, very well and very carefully. Mm-hmm. We understood we were facing really an existential challenge, and we played as a team. And I think that's the approach that we have to take to all of the big domestic challenges our country is facing. And I do want to say, speaking for the federal government, it's got to start with us, and it has to start with us listening really, really hard.
They want you to listen, but they also want action, you to be backed with the power to do action. Do you have the power? As the Prime Minister said, this role is not to go to state funerals abroad and stuff like that. This is to solve a big problem, and you're going to have the power to do it.
Yes.
You got it.
Yes. I did not take on this job to be a spokesmodel.
Well, a lot of cabinet ministers get a mandate letter, and they follow the mandate letter. I'm curious, you get to write your own mandate letter?
No, the Prime Minister writes everyone's mandate letter, and we've discussed it, and I am really looking forward to working on some of the big challenges our country faces. And I do want to say one thing, which is, as the Prime Minister said in his press conference today, a big part of the job is working closely with him and supporting the Prime Minister. You talked about the big jobs that I have. Mm-hmm. He has all the jobs in the whole government. Right. And it's going to be a privilege for me to work with him and help him bear that burden.
Is being the Deputy Prime Minister and having this rather daunting intergovernmental affairs responsibility going to mean you're going to pick up the phone with Jason Kenney tomorrow and Scott Moe and maybe Doug Ford and try and get a meeting of minds in a hurry? What's your first priority steps here?
That is an excellent question, Don, and obviously I've thought about it.
Yes.
And my view really is, yes, pick up the phone a lot. Yes, travel a lot. And truly, in the first instance, I think my job, the job of the federal government, is to listen hard to Canadians. Mm-hmm. Elections are real and elections matter. And this election sent us a message. And so we have to listen really.
Is that the message?
The message is that we have to listen harder. Mm-hmm. And the other message, and I traveled around the country quite a bit in the election campaign. And one of the things I was struck by is that Canadians across the country have strongly held and quite different views about some of the core challenges our country faces. And the job of the federal government is going to be to try to, by, in the first instance, listening, knit our country together and have us be rowing in the same direction, or maybe I should say paddling our national canoe in the same direction when it comes to addressing those big challenges. Because truly, we do not have a choice. You know, there's that great Ben Franklin line, we must hang together or surely we shall hang separately. And that is the Canadian story. And I think the federal government has a big job to do right now, finding ways to get us paddling in the same direction.
You don't want to be up the creek without a paddle.
No, you do not.
I do want to ask you, though, because Jason Kenney is an avowed federalist. He does not want to take Alberta out of this confederation. Scott Moe's the same. Obviously, Doug Ford is too. And so far, Mr. Blanchette in Quebec doesn't seem to be really too interested in pushing that. So it's not like we're countries breaking up. But do you believe this Wexit thing is real out there, or do you think it's kind of a fringe issue?
Well, look, I think that is a question for Albertans in the first instance. I am glad to hear you listing all the strong federalist feelings by the key Canadian players.
They are.
Because, and I am absolutely a federalist. And really, you know, you're shaped by the jobs you do. And one of the things that I learned as foreign minister is how challenging the world is today, both internationally, but also all liberal democracies in the world today are facing huge challenges. And for me, the conclusion that really pushed me to is, like, there are only 37 million Canadians. Hugely challenging world, threats posed to the rules-based international order, greater threats than at any time since the Second World War. We have to be united in how we confront those big challenges. Climate change, a very important one. Prosperity for the middle class, a hugely important one. And so we need to figure out a way to all be, I was going to say to all be on the same page. And but I sort of stopped myself a little bit because, look, we also need to be realistic. We as Canadians disagree about a lot of things. This is a vast country. There are lots of different points of view. And what I think we need to do is figure out, you know, on the big issues that we need to work on together to find a way to do that. And I truly believe that is what Canadians want us to do.
How will you find it easy to repair the damage with Doug Ford? I mean, your party spent most of its election campaign demonizing him and saying that Andrew Scheer was Doug Ford and that was a bad thing. How do you build that bridge back up?
Well, I'm going to let Premier Ford speak for himself when it comes to his attitude to the federal government. But I will say that because of the NAFTA negotiations, I had a few meetings with Premier Ford, and they were very productive, very constructive meetings. And I look forward, he is the Premier of of the province that I represent as an MP, and I very much look forward to meeting with Premier Ford and finding common ground, and I think we can find it. And, you know, the other thing is, Don, again, reflecting on my most recent past experience, it would be hard to find two administrations and two leaders whose sort of core political ideologies are more different than Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump. And yet, what we managed to do is to understand that Canada and the United States have to work together. We have this huge shared common border. We have this huge trading relationship. We have this huge security relationship. And I think it speaks well to both countries that we were able to understand, sure, there's a million things we disagree about, but let's find the areas where we need to work effectively together. And the fact that we were able to do that with the administration of Donald Trump says to me that with goodwill, Canadians can find a way to work together, too.
Can you get this deal through Congress, or can Congress get this deal through before that window closes in like 10 days or less?
See, I was about to say to you, one of the jobs, which I do not have, is getting the new NAFTA through Congress. But what I will say is both I and the Prime Minister have been in close contact with the Democrats. Speaker Pelosi thinks very highly of our Prime Minister. and with Ambassador Lighthizer, the USTR. On Sunday, I spoke to Chairman Neal of the Ways and Means Committee, the Democratic chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. On Monday, had a long conversation with Ambassador Lighthizer. What I hear from both of them is goodwill on both sides, a real desire to get to yes. Ultimately, it's their job to do that, but it is a good thing that they want to get it done, and we're going to be with them every step of the way.
My producer's going to scream at me for asking one more question, but I'm going to, because it's kind of hard for me to ask this. I couldn't help but notice Jim Carr. You worked with him on international trade, and he wasn't there, and he is a key part of any Western outreach program by this federal government as a Manitoba senior minister. Is he healthy enough to make a meaningful role in making your job easier to meld with these provinces?
I love Jim. I hope he won't mind my saying that. He is a fantastic human being, a true Renaissance man, and a fantastic representative of his riding and of Manitoba and Canadian. I have spoken to Jim quite a bit. I talked to him a lot during the election and quite a bit since the election. Jim is a very strong person. He is committed to being healthy, and he is committed to serving Canadians. The Prime Minister spoke today about this particular role that Jim is going to play, speaking for the prairies, and I look forward to continuing to work with him. He is an essential partner and ally in a huge number of things, by the way, but you are quite right, a very important voice for the prairies and the West, and I know that he has the strength to do that. Of course, his health is the most important thing. So, Jim, take care of yourself.
Exactly.
But I know something that Jim said to me is the best way for him to get healthy is to keep on working.
Oh, good. Well, he's needed. So anyway, yeah, fight on, Jim. All right. Thank you, Chrystia Freeland. Always have a pleasure having you on. Hope to have you on again before I fade into the sunset soon. But thank you.
Of course.
All right. Thanks again.